on 1 second. You're good. All right.
Okay. This is Arthur Gasparo, Chair of the Traffic Safety Advisory, Traffic Safety Work Group, and I will call to order the meeting for July 15th, 2021. Before we begin, I'll read the script for remotely conducted open meetings. Public participation guidelines. Members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting must use their full name for Zoom access. If full names are not used, people will not be allowed to participate in the discussion. The town reserves the right to remove any member of the public from the meeting who doesn't use the full name or acts inappropriately. Confirming member access as a preliminary matter. This is Arthur Gasparo, Chairman. Permit me to confirm all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Mr. Gardner?
Yeah,
Mr. McNeil?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Mr. Pittman?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Ms. Mooney
Present.
and Mr. Sylvia?
Present.
Thank you very much. We don't have any anticipated speakers on the agenda other than the members of the public that may be attending. So introduction to the remote meeting. Good morning. This open meeting of the Traffic Safety Work Group being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Traffic Safety Work Group is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town website, identifying how the public may join. The meeting will be aired at a later time on the Nantucket YouTube channel. For Zoom meetings, please note this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer or anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless chair notes otherwise. Meeting business ground rules. We now turn to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for the effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down line of members, inviting each of you to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items of public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will forward public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote taken at this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Moving to the first item on the agenda, public comment. Are there any public comments, excuse me, for matters that are not on the agenda? If you are part of the Zoom meeting and wish to make a public comment, please turn your camera on and speak up. Seeing none, we'll move.
I have one.
Yes.
RK Suffman needs to change his name to his full name. Or I can do it if he tells me who it is.
RK Suffman, are you with us? Hello? No.
Put them in the waiting room until I get that figured out.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McVoy, I see that you've turned your camera. Are you looking to make a public comment for an item not on the agenda?
Nope.
Okay.
Thanks.
So we'll start with the first official business. We had a request for a dead end, no turnaround sign and slow children signage on Miller Lane. It was in our packets. It's the road essentially that runs behind Nantucket Inn, if you're not familiar with that. And the request would be to add some signage. I believe we would have to keep it on the public portion of the road. Is there any, I don't know if anyone, I don't see anybody here to present it. There any discussion or thoughts on providing the signs that have been requested? Would there be a motion to
Motion
provide
to
that
approve.
signage?
I will make a note that the town manager was in favor of this since it's a public road to add that signage.
Would there be a motion to install the dead end, no turnaround and slow children signage at the end of the public portion of Miller Lane?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
A motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? I might just add that while I mentioned at the end, perhaps at the discretion of the DPW for the optimum sign placement, if that makes sense and everyone's agreeable. I think that's, I don't want to dictate exactly
Yeah,
where it
Mr.
goes.
Chair, if I can say that, somewhere just after Little Isle Lane would probably be the best, but I'd say that's probably up to the discretion of the sign placement, so.
So the motion's been made and seconded. If there's no further discussion, we'll take a vote. Mr. Gardner, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. McNeil,
Aye.
Chief Pittman,
Aye.
Chief Murphy,
Aye,
Mr. Rowland,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Next was a request to change the speed limit on Matticat Road. And I see that we have I think,
You skipped number 2.
oh, I'm sorry about that. Thank you for that. So number 2, the request for signage to deter speeding on Upper Main Street and New Lane. This is something, New Lane at least, that this work group has discussed over the years. And I see that Ms. Rindler is with us, who made the request, and I would turn the floor over to you if you would like to present to the work group what it is that you have in mind.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Lisa Rindler. I am a part-time resident and owner of 5 New Lane. I wrote in because I'm very concerned about the speeding that happens on New Lane, particularly at the curve at the top of Upper Main Street. Cars just sort of whip around that, but coming from both directions, really, I often see speeding. What is nice about the street here is that a lot of people take advantage of the proximity to town to walk into town rather than having more cars driving into town. And there's actually quite a bit of pedestrian traffic on New Lane. And I understand in recent years, there have been addition of some additional houses as well that have probably, I'm guessing, increased the number of people walking. But it is a way people all day long I see walking to and from town this way, which is it's very nice that they're walking, not taking cars, as I said. But it is, I do feel it is a dangerous situation. And I respectfully request that you consider putting signs sort of right before the curve onto New Lane from Upper Main Street, and possibly at the other end as well, just alerting people to go slowly, or the speed limit, or that there's a lot of pedestrians, whatever you think would be appropriate, because it is a concerning situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we mute Ms. Kaufman? Would you please mute?
I'm sorry, I'm trying, I'm in my phone, I'm trying. The cat is meowing. Let me see if I can do that. Yes.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Rindler. Does anyone from the work group have any comments, suggestions, discussion related to the request in this corridor? I know I would add, if I may, if I don't, that we had talked at some point, I forget how many years ago, about adding some pavement markings in that area that might help to, I think, try to keep people in the lane coming around the corner, to slow it down. But I don't know that happened, or if they've worn out given the curve. That's a possibility as well. I'm not too sure what else we could do other than perhaps the signage. Is there a motion to either support signage or other action, Mr. Gardner?
problem in that area there, you do need the markings in the road, yes. But that's such a narrow road, it's probably 20 feet wide, but yet we don't have the sidewalks along there, and that's the problem. And you really need to take some space along there, run a sidewalk at least one side of the street. But that's nothing that's gonna happen overnight. It'll take a long time to happen. But it really needs to be, but your idea of getting the lines in the road would really help on that curve. Make a motion to approve that, with the lines on that curve.
Is there a second to try adding pavement markings? Oh, here, a second on that one at the moment, Mr. Gardner. Is there any other action that would be suggested or discussion from the work group? In terms of, I guess, if I may try to help facilitate the discussion, you know, the signage, I guess if we don't already have a sign about the curve, perhaps we could have a cautionary type sign. Throw some support for that.
Caution curve ahead.
Mr. Gasparo, can I make a comment?
Yes, please, Mr. McVoy.
McAvoy. Thank you.
McAvoy, thank you.
This is just serendipitous that Mrs. Rindler's on here today too, because we obviously live sort of right around the corner from each other. But I stopped running that way because there were so many times that I was almost hit coming around that blind curve, and I try to cross the street to be on the proper side of the road so people can see me and run against traffic. The long straightaway there, I think, like Mr. Gardner said, could definitely use, I don't know if we could take, if eminent domain is possible, to take any land from those cemeteries, but you know, I can even remember 6 or 7 years ago, nobody was ever on that road, and now people are walking and biking. I see a lot of people biking on that to and from town, and people go the Main Street way and they go the Westchester way to get into town. And it's extremely busy. And from my perspective, and I'll talk about this in a second about Madicket Road, but the biggest problem is the local businesses driving trailers, the landscaping trucks, you know, that are flying around the island, and understandably so. Everybody's overworked, and there's only 24 hours in a day. So I find honestly that the tourist out-of-state plates are pretty cautious around that corner, coming from Upper Main and coming in. So I don't know if a larger sign there or some kind of public notice would be helpful to kind of put some of these businesses on notice. But you know, those bigger trucks are really the problem from my perspective. But I would support anything to alleviate and slow people down around that corner and on New Lane in general.
Thank you. To your point of eminent domain or other kind of sidewalk type construction, I think there's a couple of things that would take a longer planning type of a process. And specific to the cemetery, I know that some years back when there was some road improvements proposed along other cemeteries, there are sometimes concerns for remains that may be unmarked and extend into those areas that also can prove problematic for additional road work in those particular corridors. I'm not saying I know that happens here, but it's just from past experience that has been a problem or a hurdle in terms of widening or creating sidewalks along the cemeteries. So I think we have a couple things. We have yes, Chief Murphy.
Chair, if I can ask through you to Ray, if the slow children signs are still there, the one by the traffic circle on Main, and then there should be another one down New Lane as you approach that corner, or not?
I'm pretty sure they are. I'd have to look at the one on the Upper Main side to see if that's missing, but the one, I believe the one over on, you know, heading towards the turn from the cemetery side is still there. It's a slow children, and it was a old, which never removed, but it was one of those yellow, I believe, 20 signs that's still on that post also. I mean, we've been trying to get rid of the 20s, but that one, you know, might not be a bad idea to leave it there, but it doesn't, you know, they're not looking at it anyway. Sadly.
Thank you.
It's always a bad idea to leave a 20 sign where it's not 20 mile an hour.
Right,
That creates enforcement problems. That's why you never see enforcement on that road. We can't enforce 20 mile an hour on that road.
Yeah, and that was one of those yellow cautionary ones, not the enforceable ones anyway.
That was what I was going to ask. So as long as it's, I was going to ask if we could add that, but it sounds like we already have it. So it's the cautionary as related to the curve. So maybe we could just double check. And I mean, you folks from the neighborhood might be able to add some input as to if you believe those signs are still there. I mean, we are limited in, you know, what action we really can take that is going to, you know, fundamentally deter that behavior. And we certainly, I can't think of a way that we could differentiate, you know, between local or tourist or any other, you know, kind of a way. I will say, and I think that's it's germane to all much of the discussion today, that the town manager on the radio this morning, you know, made an effort to sort of put out a public service announcement, if you will, just kind of asking folks in general to just slow down. And I mean, much more than that, I'm not too much sure what we really can do to deter the behavior on that particular corridor. Yes, Ms. Rindler.
Hi, thank you. I would just ask that you take a look at the signage that's there. I don't believe there's a sign right at the curve as you're coming onto New Lane on Upper Main Street, right at the curve. And I would hope that would deter people from sort of whipping around there, because people who might not be as familiar with the road won't know that it is such a narrow road. And there's also the risk of, you know, a motor vehicle accident at that point as well, if another car is coming from the other direction. But I would respectfully ask you to consider additional signage both there and, if it is possible, at the other end of New Lane, just because it has been an ongoing issue and it is of great concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you.
And I think I can talk to Andy Lowell, but across the street, I think he owns one of those properties, but then the one on the corner of like Barnabas and New Lane, there's a lot of overgrowth there too. So maybe I can take a look at that. And next time I see Dale fishing, I could ask him if it's possible to maybe, you know, clean that up a little bit. Even if it's in the off season, there's a lot of overhang there. So even if there is signs that could be buried, I worry about those blind driveways too around the corner, like you're talking about, Lisa. So I'm happy to go look. I'm happy to, yeah. I'm happy. Okay. I'm happy to look and send Erica Mooney an email after with what I see. So that helps.
I think if it is amenable by consent of the work group, we could simply put that into motion just to have a review of the visibility of the signs and the signage in the area by the DPW, if that's amenable to you, Mr. McNeil.
Sure, that would be fine. I know there is a posted 30 zone around the cemeteries on the straightaway. Doesn't appear to be any signs up through the corner.
And Mr. Chair, if I can add, if it's amenable to the Uniform Traffic Code, that it be appropriate to put a warning sign for the curve in that actually be added to if it's dictated.
I think that is everyone in agreement. Mr. Chief Pittman?
Yeah, Rob, do you say there's a 30 mile an hour sign on New Lane?
I'm just looking at the Google Maps, so I'm not sure the dates of those, but certainly we could take a look to see what's out there today.
Because New Lane should be 25, all directions, based on the density I'm looking at on the map and that provision that everything's 25 unless posted otherwise.
That's right. And I guess that's another point to just to make is, you know, the committee has, the chief has worked a lot to get the posted 25 at the entryways into the town in an effort to make speeding enforceable, at the same time to eliminate a lot of what was deemed by many to be excessive or unnecessary signs. So putting signs back out, while, I think really do need to be strongly justified, and not saying that this is not an appropriate location. I'm trying to paint a little bit of history for anybody listening. So that's something we'll certainly take a look at. If the turn signs from either direction along New Lane up towards the Main Street side are appropriate, that would be great. And I would support that. And at the same time, we'll take a look at what is currently posted for speed signs on the straight section and confirm that either they need to be changed or possibly eliminated.
Okay.
Could I ask Mr. McNeil to just, because it was one of my questions that I was going to bring up next, but since you brought it up, what was the move by the town to sort of declutter the signs? It's been brought up to me a couple times by different people that I've spoken to. And I would just wonder if you could give me a little background about like who was asking to not have whatever slow children or speeding signs, and, the actions that the town took. Thank you.
I would
Sure.
go ahead, Mr. McNeil.
I was just going to say, Chief Pittman, would you mind starting a little bit of the history there?
Well, yeah, I mean, we get a lot of requests over time, and I've been here for 17 years now, and I've seen the whole thing go full circle several times. So a few years ago, back when prior to the state authorizing 25 mile per hour thickly settled areas, we got a lot of requests for people wanting 20 mile an hour zones, 15 mile an hour zones, 10 mile an hour zones, 40 mile an hour zones, you name it, everybody requested it. And it was continual and regular. And signs were put up, and sometimes you'd go down a street and there'd be 3 different speed limits on one sign, on one road. They started putting signs up because you're approaching an intersection. Now it's 15. And those are all illegal, not supported by state regulation. They're not supposed to be posted like that. At the same time, we started hearing a lot of pushback from people about all the signs that are up. And we still hear it today. I mean, there's town committees. I think the Historic Commission is probably one of the loudest complaining about all the signs that are up. And we've seen them go up. We've seen them taken back down. We've seen them go back up. We've seen them go back down. The reality is the only thing that works is frequent and regular enforcement. The reality is we don't have enough police officers in this county, in this town, to even answer calls for service, much less run speed enforcement this time of year. We're looking at, right now you're looking at 4 police officers on duty for 70,000 people. Just isn't going to get a speed enforcement detail out of that. And to get one is going to take another dozen police officers dedicated to that, because you guys have speeding problem. Mattocket Road's got a speeding problem. My Comet Road's got a speeding problem. Surfside's got a speeding problem. Sconset's got a speeding problem. I've got a list this long of places that want the speed trailer and enforcement. They think it'll make a difference, but putting up signs historically and studies have shown do nothing to slow people down. It's the nature of a roadway that creates the natural speed on the roadway. If it's a wide open roadway, people are going to go faster. If it's a roadway that's cluttered with parking, they're going to go slower. If it's narrower than 1 lane or than 2 lanes. So the only other way to deal with that is enforcement. So one of the things we tried to do, going back to the original question, was the select board determined that the entire island is a 25 mile an hour speed zone. unless posted otherwise. And that allows us to enforce 25 mile an hour in areas that before we couldn't. But what complicates it is there's a spattering of, and some people put up their own speed signs, which creates problems. They put up 20 mile an hour signs, which are only legal in a school zone. That's it. Nowhere else is a 20 mile an hour speed zone legal in Massachusetts. So we've dealt with this, and they want speed change signs. Wherever there's a speed change, you can't enforce it for 1,500 feet from that speed change, which virtually means you can't enforce it on that roadway, because most of our streets are, less than a quarter mile long in many places. So, we tried to eliminate a lot of these challenges to enforcement, and we've implemented, we've purchased equipment in the cruisers so that the officers can constantly be monitoring speed while they're doing other things. They don't have to be sitting in one location as they're driving down a road. They can, monitor speed of cars coming, and they've been able to make a few more stops that way. But, it doesn't address the real need that we have out there for dealing with this. Now, that being said, if we did hire 12 more police officers and we did have a traffic detail and we're able to do something about speed in July and August, come January and February, we're going to have police officers sitting around twiddling their thumbs doing nothing. January, February, March, April, May, December, November. So where's the balance? Where's the balance for the town? And, I don't know the answer to that, but we're going to have to figure it out one way, shape, or form. A lot of these roads, I believe you're going to talk to Mr. McAvoy about the Matticat Road. Well, that's already 25 mile an hour where you're talking about. I don't know, we can't change it to anything else. We can make it faster, but we can't make it slower. That's the thing. We have to stick with the law on that.
Thank you, Chief Pittman. I hope that was helpful, and I hope that folks are listening for the other agenda items, because so he doesn't have to go through it all sort of for each agenda item. I think that is the situation that we're dealing with, on many of these. So, but for this particular agenda item and to move this meeting along, what has been committed to is a review of the signage that exists, making sure that it's appropriate and that the signs are visible. And we hope that helps.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next agenda item, which is Mr. McAvoy's request to change the speed limit on Matticat Road. Mr. McAvoy, would you like to present your application?
Sure. Thanks, Chief Pittman. That was really instructive, and I appreciate it. I certainly have spoken to friends in town, some of whom work for you, that I play hockey with, and they echoed your sentiments about the difficulties and the struggles they face and balancing, trying to respond to calls and pull people over when they're going to the dumps on Saturdays and Sundays. I appreciate all those things. I think to start, since Mr. McNeil suggested a review of the signs, the 25 mile an hour sign right when you come across Main Street onto Matticat Road, if you were heading west, is really buried there on the right, which probably most of you can picture if you think about it hard enough. There's a 25 mile per hour sign that is almost impossible to see unless you were really looking for it, or if you'd been pulled over and a cop pointed it out to you. So I would love to see that sign potentially just cleared out, made a little bit more visible, so that when people start their journey on Matticat Road, it is front and center. I mean, what's the point of a sign if you can't see it? I hear Mr. Pittman, Chief Pittman, that signs don't work. The science shows it. I agree and understand that. I hear that from friends in your line of work. Enforcement's the way to do it. And to the police department's credit, when I've called in the off season this year, I'm here. I have 2 little kids. We live right on the road. When I've asked, to have somebody out there, especially on Saturday and Sunday mornings when everybody's going to the dump, they've been nice to make sure somebody's there. Somebody's usually there anyway. I guess one point I would make is that, we've been here full time. My wife grew up here. My grandmother grew up here. You know, I grew up in Hyannis. Like in all my years, you know, and living on Matticat Road, I've never seen somebody pulled over on Matticat Road. And I think until people start getting warnings and, you know, actually pulled over, nobody's going to think about it. They're going to think that they want to get to the dump at 7:50 before the line starts. And, you know, I see people driving 50 miles an hour past my house very regularly. And, you know, I took it upon myself to get a speed gun, and I went out there the other night, and there was one car out of 37 cars that I shot with the speed gun that was under 25 miles an hour. Every other one was over. There were several pushing 40. And that's just because it's busy right now. The island's really busy. So people can't drive as fast right now, believe it or not. You know, my concern is I have 2 little kids. There's 2 across the way. There's 6 that live next door to me. Connie and Danny Driscoll have 6 grandchildren in a blind drive. It's just it's a ticking time bomb. It's a matter of time before a Toscana truck or a Bartlett's truck or, you know, insert name here truck comes around that corner going 40 miles an hour and can't stop within 100 feet if they have to hit their brakes. And every single day I see those companies doing it. They come, somehow people reach 35, 40 miles an hour just from the stop sign. Coming from the other direction, it makes a little bit more sense that they have the momentum. Because as Chief Pittman said, you give people a wide road, they're going to drive faster. And they come to that corner entering town, heading east, and they just have a lot of momentum. And, you know, there's another big problem, which is people bike up Main Street and they don't know, because they're tourists, they don't know they need to cross over to the bike path. So they start out Matticat Road west on the actual road, and then they need to cross over the road right at the worst part where people are coming around the corner coming from the west, you know, and it causes all the time I hear the brakes and I see the traffic stops. So I just think we need to, you know, my intent wasn't to change I don't know how that got misconstrued, but it wasn't to change the speed on Matticat Road. It was to try to address this problem, which is just, we have a great bike path. It gets used okay. Wynn Street's a disaster, should probably be one way. You know, people drive too fast in and out of town. And, you know, I'm not coming here saying it's an easy solution or that I have one, but I wanted to put my voice out there, let you know what it's like, because I sit here and I watch it as I work 9 hours a day, and I experience it every time I pull in and out of my driveway. And it's a ticking time bomb. And whether it's a car or a kid or a biker, something bad's going to happen here. And I won't live with myself if I don't speak up about it. So that's, you know, that's my piece. I'm happy to be involved. I'm happy to work on a subcommittee. I'm happy to, you know, raise awareness, get neighbors involved. You know, you tell me how I can help, and I'm willing to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
We all are, you know, aware and appreciate your comments. It sounds to me that as a first step, we should, again, similar to, we're going to be there for the new lane area, just have a real good look at the signage to be sure, not necessarily to add signage. Ms. Sylvia does a great job with the signage. I'm sure that a lot of it is that the options are limited. The alternatives are limited in terms of the placement, those houses that are right up so close to the road there on the north side. My suggestion would be that we start with a review of the signage and the visibility of that signage in that area. And then I don't know about, when the pavement markings happen the next round, if there might be any refreshing or improvements that might make. And with that, I would open it up if any work group members have anything further to add. And I do hope that the speed issue has been addressed. So I hope that we don't, for each and every agenda item, have to go through the same piece. Mr. Sylvia?
Yeah, just to follow up on that too, the 25 at the beginning there is also a sign on that post that says, directing bikes to the bike path. Again, there's an encroachment issue. I cut this about a week ago. I trimmed that all out so you can see the signs, but it's hard to keep up with because it's literally the ladies' roses are all in the road. I trimmed it out. I'd love to be able to move it down further, but again, another encroachment issue. You got bushes and trees sticking out so far that if I move it further down the road, it's going to be right where all the parking is, which I don't even know if there's legal parking there. We've never had a sign there, but I could move it down there, but where the landscapers park, it's going to have to be right about there where it's actually going to be visible for enough foot, distance so that you can see it. It's always been posted there. It's just been kind of an encroachment issue with the ladies' roses and trimming them out a couple times a year.
Thank you for that. So we'll just have a review of that. And I guess if we do think that there is an encroachment issue, then we may want to look at that as well. My sense is that I think that the structures there are in fact quite close to the road layout, but maybe that's something we can get a copy of plans either from the building department or registry of deeds and just have a look to try to get a sense of, an initial look what might be going on there, and if it might provide any other alternatives for improving that situation. Anybody have anything further on the topic? Thank you, Mr. McVoy. We'll have a look at it and see what we can do.
I appreciate it. Last thing I would say is I think a sign as you're heading east on Matticat Road and coming up around kind of the blind corner there where Wynn Street's on your right, there's, oftentimes people illegally park in between the road and the bike path there. There's a piece of land, right? Mr. Sylvia, you know what I'm talking about there. And it would be a perfect spot to have a sign facing west saying, slow down, blind corn, kids at play, coming up, into that area. And I think maybe that should be considered. It might help, abate some of that speeding coming from the dump side. So something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks again.
Okay. I will, I'll send the land court plan. It's from 1945, but it does show that structure. I'll send that to you, Mr. McNeil, copy you, Erica, just for something to have a look at. But I mean, it looks to be within, not putting a scale on it, but a couple of feet, so I do think that there's, it's a tough situation there with the edge of that road layout in the house. Moving on, if nobody has anything further on that topic, the request to change the speed limit on Crooked Lane. And so we received an email respond about the speed, and we were considering installing a caution curve ahead sign. Was Chief Pittman's suggestion. And I'm just looking to see is there anybody from the public that wants to speak on the Crooked Lane matter? Hearing not, does anyone from the work group want to add anything and or support the suggestion that we put a caution curve ahead sign in? Mr. Chief Pittman?
Is that, I never did get an answer. What is the posted limit out there? Is it 30 or 25? It should be 25 looking at the density.
Mr. Sylvia?
Yeah, it's posted 25 at both ends. There's one on the, as soon as you turn off Matticat Road on the right-hand side, and then there's one at the other end before the turn. It's actually closer to the curve. But the other one is pretty far back from the curve. So I don't know if this is more just around the curve is where the issue is, I think.
It sounds like it. I think just my suggestion was a curve ahead with an advisory speed limit, maybe of 20 mile an hour or 15 mile an hour or something on the curve.
Thank you. Is there any, I don't know that we need a motion on that action if it's amenable to follow the chief's suggestion. Hearing no further discussion, we'll move on to discuss the changing of the Candle Street taxi stand to 1 hour parking and or drop off pickup zone.
Excuse me, Mr.
And-
Chair. Mr. Jarecki has had his hand raised, but I'm not sure if he wanted to speak on something.
You're all set, Mr.
I did have just a very quick question on the last two items, which is Matticat Road. I hear you all saying it's 25, but as a resident of Matticat Road, I believe that there's speed limit signs that are at 40 and 35, which are white. And then there's a thickly settled residential area that says 25. And as a resident, I genuinely don't know which controls. I don't know what I'm supposed to, what is the law?
So thank you, Mr. Jarecki. The speed limit is not uniform throughout the entire corridor. And certainly the chief could speak further to this if he wants to, but I would say that it seems that the speed limit is as posted between the individual signs.
Yeah, the issue, it's the portion of Matticat Road where I can't remember where the westernmost sign is posted right offhand, but from that point into town, it's 25 mile an hour going both directions. And from that point going outbound westward, it's 40 mile, it should be 40 mile an hour, which is the statutory limit because it's a rural road. There's criteria about density that determines within a quarter-mile distance, that determines whether something's densely populated or thickly settled or not. And the entirety of Matticat Road doesn't fit the density standard, but certainly I believe it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, I believe it's from Crooked Lane or around that area should be 25 mile an hour.
Okay. Mr.
Yeah.
Sylvia.
Yeah, it's 25 up to like, it's just past Crooked Lane around number 74. It's like a vacant lot. I believe there's a house there now, but on the map, there's no lot. It does change to 30 by the turn. It's always been there. I don't know if you want to just take those out or if, because I know what you mean about the 40.
Yeah, well, in theory, it's at some point, somebody used to go around and change the speed limits at these curves. Really, that should be a curve ahead with an advisory speed rather than a speed limit change. It makes, because remember what I said, 1,500 feet from speed limit change, we can't enforce it. You have to, but we can. An advisory speed is just that, it's advisory only. If the road and the vehicle can handle it, 40 mile an hour is appropriate. If the vehicle can't handle it and the person's exceeding the advisory speed, they can be held accountable for the results of that. But you know, we need to, that's one of the areas we should clean up because it really, Matticat Road's either 40 or 25. That's it. Everything else would just be advisory.
And one more question. So when I have a white 40, and then as I'm going into Matticat, I then have a yellow thickly settled, but it's right where they're very close proximity. Is the yellow thickly settled an advisory or a?
It's regulatory because it's advising you it's a thickly settled district, which in Massachusetts, thickly settled districts are automatically 25 mile an hour.
Thank you.
So there's a 40 real close to that 25. That's probably a legacy sign. We should probably go out, maybe Ray, and make sure that, because that would be confusing. There doesn't necessarily need to be one back, within a mile of that 25 mile an hour sign. There might be one you can get rid of there.
Thank you. Back to the next agenda item, which is the discussion regarding the taxi stand along 0 Main Street, which I've been keeping an eye on it. I see that Mr. Lowell has also joined us and had also filed an email that's in your packet. And it seems that there's very, very low utilization of that area by the taxis. I don't know if it's a function of the ride share services or taxis operating in different manners. But, one of the things that occurs to me is that, having underutilized parking areas in town is something that we should really consider because it's obviously we all know that what a premium parking is. And so one of my thoughts would be that would get changed to a 1 hour area, and then could almost become more de facto for pickup, drop off alternatives as well for the High Line and the boat coming in there. By having it 1 hour, it doesn't fall into that, becomes all day parking with folks that have the sticker, and then see how that goes. I guess the only question would be whether there would be, one of the questions would be, do the taxis need more space? Does a portion of that need to be reserved or not? Again, my observation is not, but I'm not in town nearly as much as I used to be. And so I'll open it up to discussion and observation and what you all might think about trying to make a change there.
Yeah. Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Wall.
Thanks. Just thank you for having me again. I like to always make sure you guys realize how happy I am that you let me participate. I don't butt in, I don't ask too many questions, but this particular thing, when we switched from COVID back to whatever we are now, the signs went in like they were. Well, I mean, I guess when cabs we didn't even have Straight Wharf fixed yet. We still had the Captain Toby space thing and all that. And I see Rob's on. So I think what's happened is, Uber has sort of changed things in the cab area at Straight Wharf by Captain Toby's is really working. Well, I don't know what question if that's the right word to use, but it's being utilized for more cabs because now there's more space. So I've been watching this every day, and I'm in town more than once a day. I have never seen a cab so far this year in this spot. Now, there's probably been one or two here and there, but I personally haven't seen one. Club car, yes, 2 or 3, pretty much consistent. With the sidewalks fixed to Straight Wharf, this is a great spot for pickup drop-off to get sort of encouraged, because the walking is not that bad on the sidewalk now with bags, hockey sticks. You can walk. That's what we should be doing. And I don't know about the 1 hour. That's up to you. I know that Salem Street is 30 minutes. So I wasn't really sure what the right thing was, Art, on that. So that's why I didn't say too much about that. I just think that the first half of it should be parking, and maybe the second half, I would defer to Ray. I think it's about 300 feet of space there. I never tape measured it because people would think I was out of my tree if I was down there with a tape. So I guessed, I'd say it's about 300. Across that stretch, it's technically Easy Street that I never really knew myself was actually Easy Street. I thought it was Candle, but it's technically Easy Street. All right. So, so that's my only thing. I mean, I think we need to do something, should have been done earlier. I wish we could have met last month, but it's definitely, it's kind of crazy that none of this space is being used for anything. So I'll leave it to you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Work group members, thoughts on 30 minutes, 1 hour, all of it or a portion of it, or take no action? I think all of those are on the table for discussion. Chief Murphy?
If I can ask Chief Pittman, enforceability wise, what would be better?
Probably 1 hour. I'm a little lost by what Nat was saying a second ago when he mentioned Easy Street. So are you talking about next to the Vineyard Vines there, or are you talking about right across the street?
No, I talk about Zero Main, but technically that stretch of road,
yeah,
is, I believe it's Easy Street on the map, but
No,
I call it Candle,
yeah,
but I don't really know what it is. It's kind of like Pearl Street is India, you know what I mean, Chief? It's one of them oddball things, but I call it Zero Main, the old Lions Paw section. I don't know what it's called legally.
Easy Street starts on the north side of Main Street, so it's Candle.
Oh, is that how that's set up? Okay,
It's Candle Street, right?
okay.
I think the idea, I didn't even think of I agree it's underutilized. I think the idea of having a pickup zone there is intriguing. I never thought of that. And maybe a split time, just have pickup in the afternoon, but parking again in the evening might be an option.
Yeah, that's, Rob had his hand up. All right, but yeah, that, Chief, that's, I was thinking, okay, so like when the boat schedules switch, I mean, I was thinking Ray's gonna have like signs that have like sleeves in them to just lift them out, switch them around, but that's coming, Ray, so get ready for that. It'll have to be the right color sleeve though for the HDC, but there's definitely an answer to that, what Chief is saying. I just don't know what that is, but when the High Line switches to the 7 PM, gets in here at 8, when the steamship goes to 5 o'clock's the last boat, that might be a good opportunity for what he's talking about. But at the moment, the last boat gets in at 9 from the High Line right now. So that lasts till, I don't even know. I forgot the date when that switches, but that's a good point. It could be till a certain time and then make it regular parking after 8 o'clock or after 9 o'clock, after 8 in the winter and the off season, something like that. I think that's a good idea. I didn't think of that. So beautiful. Good. I think that's a good thought.
Thank you. Mr. McNeil?
Just going to state it's about 135 feet, not 300, but
okay.
I had been talking with Nat and briefly with Ray about the high turnover possibility in that area. I do like the area. I like the utilization beyond the boat schedule that Chief Pittman raised as well. And I think between the work group, we could probably, or maybe Ray and I could discuss and come back with something that fits with the same similar signage in the area. I guess I wanted to ask Chief Pittman about the 1 hour when right around the corner at Salem is a half an hour. I think the high turnover rate would benefit that area, but this is early in the discussions, certainly.
And if I may, real quick,
Yes.
talk. I think we need to keep cars on this road. To be honest, I really want to make a motion for the shortest possible time limit we can, so we have the turnover on this stretch. But I think if we don't have cars there, that lane is turning into a turn lane, which makes a very difficult traffic issue at the bottom of Main Street and a safety issue with the crosswalks, the way they traverse that area too. So I'm in support of changing this, but just at the lowest possible enforceable time limit we kind of can.
I didn't want to bring up what Steve just said, but that's true. I actually had someone mention that to me about it's now become sort of like the little stretch by Easy Street Schooners thing. It's a jiggly wiggly over after you get past lane 2, the outlet of the AMP lot. It sort of jiggles into a 2-lane, and I think it works as a car, but I think what Steve said is true. It sort of makes it harder to do the wave and the hold and the Nantucket way of letting people go. It sort of makes it a little bit, it lends to pedestrians, and there's a lot of people crossing the street there. That is like one of the heaviest spots we have. Then you have the next one on the other side of the street, on the club car side, is just as busy. So I think Steve's onto something there with that. So thank you for bringing it up, Steve. I just didn't want to put a wrinkle into anything by saying that. So you did it. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. It seems to me from hearing all of the discussions, I think this is exactly what we're here for, is beneficial, that if we went with 30 minutes, it would change, it would eliminate the sort of having to have split time or changing signs. And 30 minutes is almost de facto pick up, drop off, and then it could be, folks that might be running into the grocery store there, or it would almost seem to be easy. Initially I had been thinking 1 hour, you need a little more time, but the truth is, of course, it's not, you're not likely to get the ticket right at the 30-minute line anyway. So if you keep it, as was mentioned, to that shorter time frame, higher turnover, and then, if you make it pick up, drop off only, what if somebody wants to actually walk down to the boat to meet someone and get them, or, what have you. So, or if they want to do pick up, drop off, and it's open, then they could still sit there and wait. So I like the idea of just trying to keep it simple instead of split timing, if possible, or having to come back. I'd like to see if this could go to the select board sooner rather than later, if possible. So that would be my thinking. Mr. Sylvia?
Yeah, and the 30-minute would work there, definitely. I've talked to Jerry Mack downtown a lot. I work with him a lot downtown with signage and stuff. And the one thing that they have a lot of complaints about is when we do the split. So we have 2 separate signs, and people get confused by that. I don't, it is what it is. But like if it's a loading zone 4 and stuff like that, if this is just strictly 30-minute and you throw up 30-minute signs, it's a lot easier for the people to understand. If we make it pick up, drop off in the morning, then it's 30-minute at night, or you wind up with multiple signs on there, and just from experience, people aren't going to read a book on the sign. So you put too much wording on a sign, they get a lot of complaints downtown. I get it. I've been talking to Jerry a lot about it, and there is some ways we got to look at changing some of the wording on the signs to make it as clear as possible so that they can actually enforce it properly and not have the blowback from the people, just trying to get out of a ticket or not reading the whole sign.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I get that. Can I ask the chief a question, Art, real quick?
Go ahead.
Chief, through you, Art. The Vineyard Vine spot, I call it the 5 and 10, Chief, because that's what it was. What are we doing there? Like I saw a lady the other night parked there waiting for some people to get off the boat. Are we allowing that as sort of a nice little spot? Like the bus parks there when there's kids coming, bus parks there when they leave. Because but listening to you guys talk about leaving this 30 is actually, unfortunately, a good idea that I didn't really want to say was okay, because I thought that maybe there'd be cars there and no one could do it as a pickup drop off. But I think it'll migrate itself to work for some, as Art was saying. But like that little spot by, where the bus goes, Chief, you know what I'm talking about, that little spot there. Let's say I was just this random person and parked there and ran down to the boat and left my car there. Am I going to get ticketed for that? Or is it going to be let go? And because everybody knows I'm not parked there.
Well, no, you're going to get a ticket probably if you're not there.
If there's not a person in the car. So that could be a pickup drop off where you have to wait in your car. It's kind of functioning that way now.
No,
right?
Bad idea.
Okay.
And it's only because that has to be the location for the school bus to drop off school teams.
And no one knows when they're coming.
Like that. Otherwise, the school bus will go down Commercial Street and up there and drop them off there, and that would cause a huge traffic problem.
All right, so better to leave it the way it is. I got it. I'm just asking. I knew that you had something that you're doing with it. So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So to the topic on the table, is there any motion or suggested action for the stretch of Candle Street between Salem Street and Main Street? Mr. Rollins?
Motion that we change that to half-hour parking.
The motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
seconded by Chief Murphy. Any further discussion? Mr. Gardner, how do you vote? Mr. McNeil,
Aye.
Mr. Pittman, Chief Pittman,
Aye.
Chief Murphy,
Aye.
and Mr. Rowland.
Aye.
The chair also votes aye. Thank you. We'll formulate that as a recommendation to the town manager. And then hopefully she takes that to the select board. I believe that's the procedure we need to follow for this change. But
And I just want to thank you all. I'm going to leave. Thank you so much. And I'll get 100-foot tape at Home Depot Saturday. Thank you. Take care, you guys.
I got one
Thank
for
you.
you. I got
Thank
plenty
you for everything. Thank you for everything you do. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Thank you all. So moving on to the next agenda item. Review request for a three-way stop sign at Fairgrounds Road and Old South Road. And as you're all aware, oh, did I miss? No, not sure if we, oh. So this was from Mr. Protzik. I don't know if he's with us. I don't see him in the participants. So this was an email to us suggesting that that this may become a three-way stop. And obviously we made a attempt a few years ago with that roundabout and the mock-up that had been done for a period of time, and it didn't end up getting approved. I think today we just keep it, or we open it for discussion, but is there anybody that would support making this a three-way stop? Hearing none. Does anybody have any action you'd like to take? Take no action. Okay, I'm not hearing any support for that. And so we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a review the road shoulder parking at Yummy and 63 Surfside Road. And we've discussed this, I believe, in the past, and we've got some emails in the packet, some photos, and I had done a small sketch. I think that's in there, right? They also had mentioned 45 Surfside, a similar situation at that location, though the agenda just references Yummy and 63 Surfside. So I think that we probably should stay limited to that spot. And if we were going to consider another location, it probably should be a future agenda item, would be my thinking. But we'll open that up for discussion if additional signage is supported. My understanding is this is already designated as no parking either side, so we're not changing parking. It would just be for additional no parking signage. My understanding is that the town manager supports this, and I certainly would support it. And I open that up to how the work group feels.
Mr. Chair, I just want to note that the person who requested this matter to be on the agenda was unable to attend because of work.
Thank you. I don't know if we need a motion. Is this something that is everybody supportive of adding some additional signage there to make it clear for enforcement purposes that there's no parking either side by that bus stop?
I think we should sign it.
Okay, is that something that we can just get done through the DPW, Mr. McNeil, or do you need anything further?
No, we could take care of that.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next agenda item. We've had a fair amount of requests in some emails, and as you're all aware, the past discussion regarding speeding on Myacomet Road. And so I'll open that up to discussion. I see that we have some folks from the public in attendance. I don't know if any of you are here for this topic. I don't want to have us be repetitive for time reasons of I think it's very similar to what we heard from the chief at the beginning of the meeting. But if anybody has any specific suggestions action items or recommendations for what could be done along this corridor, we'll open it up for discussion.
My comment, Evan, was good area there was almost the whole length of the paved area where people are speeding most of the time. And it's a matter of during the summer with everybody going to the beach. They're in a hurry to get down there and a hurry to get back. And I think it's more the beach goers than it is the people that live in there.
The only other thing I could think of would be, to the extent possible, if when we can get to it, some cutting back of the brush would at least perhaps provide some pedestrian refuge that may not exist at this moment. Not that I think people have to be, jumping out of the way of cars, but it certainly helps to have a wider shoulder, maybe not for speeding, but for general safety purposes. But I'm not
It'll help
sure.
an awful lot. The brush is coming in on that road, on both sides. And the brush cutting would help an awful lot.
Does anybody have any other comments or discussion on the matter? Can we add it to the general brush cutting list as the DPW is able?
Where it should be.
Okay.
We certainly can.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McNeil.
Mr. Chair, can we add in just signage too, like we did similar to the other roadways, if they feel like there needs to be additional signage placed, that it can be?
Review visibility and signage to the extent that improvements at the discretion of the DPW may be able to be made in the area.
Thank you. Yes.
Is that amenable to all? Okay.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it.
Thank you very much, Mr. McNeil, Mr. Sylvia. Moving on to the next item, we have a request for a yellow no parking line across from 8F Street, which is just south of the Walter Barrett Pier. And this was filed by Mr. Jarecki, who is with us. And so I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you all for agreeing to hear this. I didn't even know this forum existed for me, and I really appreciate everyone's time. So we've been having this problem for a bunch of years, although this year it's gotten a little bit worse because when someone did something intentional, I think that was meant to be better. They repaved the curbing across from our driveway to get the boat trailers up on the curbing. What it actually does is there's people who don't know what they're doing. They actually park up against the curb. So they end up sticking even more into the road. But the challenge is that we are the only driveway that's directly across from that curb. And we can't get in and out of our driveway when the boat trailers are there. There's big trucks, big boat trailers. They're there all day. And they literally just sit there very often with one wheel up on the curb, sometimes with no wheels up on the curb. And my challenge is twofold. One, getting cars in and out of the driveway. And two, as you can see through the pictures, I have a boat that I try to move from my garage over to the town pier. And that boat is every part of the width of the road. And it works when I don't have a big truck in the way, but it doesn't. I didn't have a good picture from the weekend because I wasn't there on a weekend when it was happening, but you can see one of Captain Tom's boats and how far it encroaches into the road. And that's an experienced person because they park there all the time. The people who aren't there as often do an even less good job. I can't turn around. And I've tried, I put some yellow cones, some orange cones across the way. People would pick them up. I don't think I was within my rights to do it. And then the police would actually take them away and give them back to me. I've put signs up there. I put notes up there, but I can't get anything to happen. And I can't get in and out of the garage. So I don't know what else to do than to ask for just a yellow band only across from where my driveway is to allow me to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Jarecki. We'll open it up to discussion by the work group. Anybody, is there support for a yellow line or other suggestions? I think that, the balance there, of course, becomes the need for the parking for the boat trailers. Is there any, I guess, just for discussion purposes, to try to, how can we help to alleviate that and preserve parking? You said that this has been happening for a while, but the change with the curbing exacerbated the problem. Would it help if the area behind the curbing was leveled out and maintained a little bit? Is that, does it fall off there? Is there a reason folks aren't pulling up on that? I think, is there any other sort of small adjustments that we might be able to make that would both help you and not take away the very limited trailer parking?
I think that your guys are cutting back the foliage as far as I think you'd be allowed, because I think that you've got the neighbor on the other side, I believe. I could imagine a sign there saying that people are supposed to car park on the curb could help. But really all I'm asking for is the width of one large car. So I'm not saying take away all the parking. I'm saying just take away one space worth of parking that allows me to make that turn. Which I don't think is such a problem, given the fact that, they can park there, they can park down on Tennessee. There are other places to park, and it's just we're the only one that has this issue.
Mr. McNeil?
Thanks. I was just going to give a little history. When we first looked at this area, it was a request from the Mattocket Conservation Association to take a look at F Street and to install this berm and improve the shoulder behind it. The DPW did that. It's a combination of maintaining the brush and maintaining the surface, but directing people on how to traverse and or park there, I would say came pretty naturally to boat users that are dragging a trailer and need a place to leave it, considering that they are also entering that area before they drop the boat with a fully loaded trailer. So getting out of the way and being given a more convenient location to get out and stay out of the way has seemed to have been the solution. This is, in fact, the first complaint or concern that we've received. And I'm happy to hear from others on the committee. I'm not sure if this rises to the level of eliminating parking there, but it's in all my estimation in my years of being able to go back and revisit a location that has been improved. It seems to be performing as originally imagined.
Thank you. Chief Murphy?
I don't want to just be taken the wrong way, but we're here usually for people getting in and out of their driveways with their cars. I don't think we've ever had anybody getting in and out of the driveway with their boat. I am not for putting a yellow line here. There is access in and out of the driveway for vehicular traffic, and this is a special kind of circumstance in a matter of convenience more, that just not in favor.
Thank you. Chief Pittman?
Yeah, I'm not in favor either. There's two issues. I'm looking at the picture. One is if that boat was there without a vehicle attached to it, we should have gotten a call, and we could have come up and dealt with that. That's not legal. And the other thing is that boat, Sea Legs, is not legal to be operated on a public roadway. So, I don't want to make a no parking to accommodate no illegal activity, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Anything further from the work group? It sounds like that's a take no action, Mr. Jarecki. And I would just refer you back to Chief Pittman's comments. If there's no truck attached to the trailer, then to call the station.
Look, I can do that. It's not no truck. It's cars parking there without boat trailers. Chief Pittman, your ATV guys, we must call them. I feel like we're being a nuisance, and they're out there all the time issuing summonses because they're never parking as they should be. And look, I hear everything you're saying, but the reality is we can't get cars in and out, and if you think for a moment about how that pier is used, we have the boat traffic backing in the boats. We have the boat traffic taking out the boats. We have the people trying to park. We have people trying to go up and down F Street. It's a lot of traffic, and it's 13 feet wide. And so, it's not, how would I complain about the fact that I constantly have a boat and a boat trailer in front of my driveway? I can't make an issue to that. But, this one issue where, if I have guests and I have more than 2 cars in that driveway, it's really a nuisance. I'm sorry that you all don't see it. I think the pictures make it really clear, but I've been having this issue since I moved into that house. I've tried every way I know to just get people to give me just a little bit of room on the other side. I don't think it's a lot to ask, but obviously I'm not having support.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing further on the topic, we'll move on to the discussion of the Old South Road pavement markings. And we did just receive an email this morning from Mr. Arminetti. And included in our packet is the plans. Oh, I see that we also have Mr. Pesci with us. And I think a lot of this, the 2 things I was hoping to determine or try to find out was what is the schedule for getting this done? And is the interim solution, is there anything additional that could be done? The crosswalks haven't been installed, and the area's, wider and getting utilized there more, as well as what I've observed is that it seems that, motorists are generally confused by the wider area that's there now without any sort of direction as to, what they're supposed to be doing, where they're supposed to be and not be. And I just feel like with our purview under traffic safety, that it's something that we should at least have a discussion and an understanding about either how long it's going to take to, what the schedule is, and or if there are any additional interim measures, sort of like they did at the intersection with Airport Road, which was very helpful. It provided some guidance. There is some temporary markings that do exist, heading by Naw Shop, but they're sort of limited, I think, to generally divide the road, and you now have a much wider area there. So I just wanted to bring it before us, feeling like it's something that does fall under our purview. Mr. Pesci, thank you for attending, having been involved. I don't know if there's anything, you want to add or suggestions.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Mr. Chairman, and members of the safety group here. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed actually listening to some of your things. I know you all take this pretty seriously, as do I. And it has been a problem since day one. We finally got some temporary markings, which helped immensely. I've been after the Richmond folks to try to get this to the end game. The answer that we got this morning, while you have been on the call, I'll just read, if you would, Mr. Chair, if you allow me to just highlight a couple things. So Mr. Dave Arminetti from the Richmond Group sent this to Erica and CC'd a bunch of us, myself and company, but it says that at this point, I'm advised strongly by Mr. Petkauskis that it is not prudent or safe to try and get the thermoplastic markings done at this time. He later describes thermoplastic markings take longer to place, install, and dry, and as a result, the subcontractor needs to be in the right of way, diverting traffic for longer periods of time compared to traditional painting. His initial answer was he couldn't get the guy over there that didn't have room on the ferry, couldn't somehow schedule the ferry. Now he's telling us, which is not untrue, that it's not a safe time of year due to the traffic intensity. So he's suggesting that this be done in early September. So I guess he's not wrong in that regard. So the two things I'd like to just mention for the group's consideration. Number one, I certainly endorse that because of the intensity of waiting until September. But the first thing I want to say is we need to give them a deadline. I think they work better with deadlines. So, you know, he's saying early September, great. Then we'll say we want it in by 1 October or something like that. Second thing that I wanted to go over was that in the case, if the group or police department decides or would like to have some other temporary markings or temporary safety features put in place, then I think it's a good point for us to carry that message back today. So just like you said, Mr. Chairman, at the end of Airport Road and Old South Road and Macy's, we did put up, and of course, along the expanded lane, we did put up some temporary traffic stanchions there and glued them to the base pavement. A lot has been done. A lot of positive things have been done on this road. We're going to end up with a great project and a great product. I'm going to push them to get the landscaping done in the fall, to get all this traffic marking, pavement marking done in the fall. I agree that thermoplastic is the way to go due to the high intensity in use here. I don't think there's any other option there. So I certainly would recommend we endorse the idea of waiting till September after Labor Day, but then try to issue some kind of recommended deadline. I don't know what authority other than the pressure that I can put on them through the planning board, but I can certainly say, let's get it done by 1 October.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Is installation of the thermoplastic markings at night with a waiver, if needed, from the select board not an option?
I can't answer that.
I mean, that seems to make the most sense. I mean, we're just as busy in, September. I mean, it's not gonna be just as busy, but it's still gonna be that corridor road. This challenge isn't just gonna go away. Mr. Chief Pittman?
Yeah, I think to answer part of your question there, we've been dealing with this on a couple other locations and issues as well. And the issue really is being able to even get the contractor here. Right now, my understanding is you can't get a car here before September 10th if you're not already have a reservation. So a contractor with a truck is going to have a much more serious challenge with that. That being said, there's absolutely no way the PD would sign off on a permit that would do anything in that roadway right now before Labor Day. It's just too backed up. Nighttime, we'd have to look at it, but my understanding is, I mean, you got other challenges at night that are somewhat safety related. It's not always that easy. When we've had when we were doing the sewer work at night, we had most of our mishaps occur at night. People didn't understand the officer's directions clearly. Maybe the barricades had moved or weren't properly set or whatever the issues were. And it was a very dangerous situation. And every day that it went on just added to the risk. So although the roadway's not being used to its optimal capacity right now because of the lack of the proper lineage, I think it is what it is until September, in which we can get in there and get the lanes striped, get them the way it's supposed to be, and then it can be done properly. It can be done methodically, and it can be done without creating too much of disruption.
Thank you. That's helpful. I think all of this is, we have to be reasonable and understanding and what can, logistically be done as well. Any other comments or thoughts, Mr. McNeil?
Ed, did you say that this is temporary lines or these are going to be the permanent ones?
No, these will be the permanent ones in September. What's out there now is temporary. You know, Victor attempted to put down some kind of plastic in place units, striping, just to kind of delineate laneage, to help everyone a little bit better, and of course that supports better operation at night. I think that was very successful. It's not optimal yet, but it was very successful as compared to having nothing out there before. I know Erica's office was getting a lot of calls, so I was, you know, complaining to them on and on about that, trying to get something accomplished, and that's when they finally got some additional support from Victor to put something down. Victor believes that that's, you know, at least a minimum level of safety that we can provide, or that they can provide, so that at least there's something in place. So I agree with that. And if we can survive for the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks, I'd say it's probably the best course of action. But I would immediately follow this meeting with an email to Mr. Armanetti, Mr. Pastan, CC my planning board staff contacts, and Rob yourself, Art yourself, and so on. Just telling them that we discussed this, that we want him to absolutely schedule this for early September, and that we want it all in place by 1 October.
So thank you. And the one thing I think is we have to, the format of this work group is advisory to the town manager. So I just think we also want to make sure that we, I hate to use the pun, stay in our lane. That perhaps there could be a recommendation made from the work group to the town manager to recommend that Richmond Development Group be requested to complete the required improvements by October 1st. And then that could be a memo to the town manager that, you know, and I open that up for discussion, but again, I'm trying to procedurally be sure that we don't go off reservation either.
Sounds like the appropriate pathway.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll move that.
So motion has been made by Mr. Gardner that if I may, Mr. Gardner, that the work group recommends that to the town manager that the improvements the improvements by Richmond Development Group on Old South Road related to the pavement markings be completed by October 1st. Is that the motion?
Yeah.
And is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. McNeil?
Aye.
Chief Pittman?
Aye.
Chief Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Rowland?
Aye.
Mr. Gardner?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Ms. Pesci, again, I very much appreciate your input and effort on the project as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Moving on, we have a review of a petition to make Mount Vernon Street one-way headed north. Knew this was going to be a little bit of a lengthy meeting.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Kaufman. How are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good, thank you. So we have your correspondence and request as well as the supporting materials. And so I'll open it up if you'd like to present your application. It's pretty straightforward, but is there anything you'd like to say? Floor is yours.
We didn't stage it, but yesterday we had a demonstration of why this is necessary in our view. My wife got hit on Mount Vernon Street by a car turning from Milk Street that tried to swerve and sideswipe both, and the driver of that car admitted his fault. But the upshot is we've had that house since my grandfather, Cy, who founded Cy's Green Coffee Pot, bought it in 1946. It used to be one way in various configurations, north and south. So that's not unusual, but it's even more compelling because it's literally the convergence point of the traffic from Prospect Street, Saratoga, and that's where the Cisco bike path begins. And there have been several collisions on that street, on our side of the street, where parked cars have been hit. We think that this is a really serious accident waiting to happen between the bike path, the converging traffic, the trucks. And if you measure that road, it is really not suitable, particularly with large trucks and the standard vehicle here, the Ford F-150, for two-way traffic. So we hope that you consider our petition favorably for the sake of bikers and drivers and pedestrians, because it's better to prevent something than to react after the fact.
Thank you very much. Is there any work group member discussion on the proposal, support, or concern? Mr. Rowland.
Yeah, I'm going to recuse because I'm a recent property owner on Mount Vernon now, but I'm very much in favor of this motion. I think it's and heading in the north direction, I think is the proper way. So I'm gonna say that I'm in favor of it also.
Okay, Chief Pittman.
I think it's unfortunate we don't have a traffic safety or traffic engineer on the town, because a decision like this really needs to be made based on to see what the impact's going to be on the other roadways with traffic counts. I mean, while in general, just looking at it, and from experience, I think it sounds good. I don't know what the impact's going to be on the traffic counts through Prospect and Milk Street and up on Joy. And, you know, maybe another alternative would be make no parking on Mount Vernon Road. That might be a better solution to open it up for two-way traffic, if that would relieve congestion at those other intersections. I just don't know the answer, is the reason I think I wished we could, you know, we had Mike Burns still here to be able to get that information for us.
I have a reply.
Yes, Mr. Kaufman, go ahead.
The no parking, at least for the residents, myself and my sister included, would be quite a burden. And I would not favor that.
And this is Ann Kaufman. Can I say something? I put it in an email and you guys may not have gotten it, but our neighbor who is on that incredibly busy Quaker Prospect Milk section had, and where there was a very bad traffic accident on Saturday. So there was an accident on Saturday at Quaker Prospect and Milk, and there was an accident on Tuesday on Mount Vernon. And he said that vehicles trying to turn left on Mount Vernon clog up. And I appreciate what I believe it was the chief of police said. I appreciate that. But just to throw in regard to that, what effect it has on other traffic, people trying to turn left there, you know, cause problems in that it backs it up into that Quaker Prospect. And I think what happened on Saturday was there was a vehicle in the intersection and somebody came slamming through on Prospect, hit the brakes, couldn't slow down fast enough. And it, you know, I don't know for sure, but they may have been in, and my neighbor said, you know, that people trying to turn left on Mount Vernon clog up the intersection of Quaker, but I understand the police chief's what he said. But I mean, it's just like, it's not only safety, it's just constant aggravation for dozens and dozens and dozens every single day. It's like watching a video game. People backing up, people can't turn, people signaling, people getting mad. I'm going to get off the phone now. I've said enough. Thank you so much for considering this issue.
Thank you, Ms. Kaufman. Mr. Gardner, you had your hand up.
Yes. I lived on Mount Vernon Street for the first 30 years of my life, even when it was a dirt road back then. And it certainly has changed, but what's changed a lot of this on Mount Vernon Street is Prospect Street. For the last 20 years or more, we keep promising the people on Prospect Street we're going to do something about bike paths all the way down to Milk Street. We've never done it all the way through, and that's a lot of the problem. We've forced these people. You notice that they come along Quaker Road when they want to go north. They're cutting out, going up Mount Vernon Street, and people coming down actually have no room to get down. But it's the way traffic is so heavy right now. People that want to go to down by the school area or whatnot, they're going up Mount Vernon Street, out Joy Street, down Vesper Lane in order to get over to the school. Then when they get to the school, they go down First Way instead of going down Sparks Avenue. It's all the traffic is so heavy right now. That's what it's all about. But what you're gonna do here is jam up Joy Street. If you take care of this, you're gonna really have a problem over on Joy Street. Like the chief says, we had a traffic engineer right now. They could probably figure this out. But Joy Street is really going to be a mess if you do something like this. I'm in favor of what they want to do, no doubt. But yet, I think it's going to, another month, somebody's going to be before us on Joy Street saying you got to make Joy Street one way. Going in the opposite direction.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Any other comments? Mr. Sylvia?
Yeah, I noticed too that we repainted the yellow line on Joy Street because last year, I believe it was, the committee made that right side, no parking. So there is more of a better flow on Joy Street now going that direction or going both directions. There's one lady that refuses not to park on the yellow line, but other than that, and she keeps getting tickets and that's, they're ticketing her. But there is definitely better flow there now. I don't know if that makes any difference or not though.
Thank you, Sylvia. I was going to make the same point. I'll just briefly add that I also support this. Give it some thought when we get asked for a one-way. I really want to think about which way it should go. And I don't want to go over through this, but that's almost also to the chief's point. And I think north does make the most sense in terms of turning movements and vehicles taking a right, thinking about that. Now, if you make a street one way and somebody can't go to their house, to their property the way they used to, they've got to go utilize the other roads. It seems to make a lot of sense that, Prospect and Joy and facilitating essentially right-hand turning movements, which have the least amount of conflicts, makes the most sense here. And so that was just my view on it. Is there a motion? And again, also, I just put that quickly. This has to go to, this is, we don't have the authority to make this change. We, Mr. Kaufman, we recommend this to the town manager, and then, this has to go to the select board. And one thought just also on the no parking as an alternative, of course, that would also go to the select board. And then there would be probably a bigger forum and concerns aired there than there may be about the one way. It's just would be my thought. Ms. Mooney?
Regarding it having to go to the select board for the direction change, that would require a public hearing, a butter notification. So there is a process that we have to follow for that if it does get a positive recommendation.
Thank you for the information. Is there a motion?
Just a point of order.
Yes.
Sorry, I wanted to just throw out, and I know we don't have a transportation manager quite yet, but I hear there's one on the way. There is a bike path that is proposed from Prospect Street through Mill Hill over to Old Farm Road. And once it gets to Hummock Pond at the pinnacle there of Joy Street and Mount Vernon, I believe the original intent was to send bikes back and forth to Milk Street, up to Wynn Street eventually, and to connect over to Matticat Road and or further down Milk Street. So I'm pretty confident that Mr. Burns, the previous transportation manager, fully intended to make use of Mount Vernon for bike activities. And I would caution the work group from making any recommendations, frankly, until the new manager takes over, which I'm hearing from the planning group is expected to be late summer or early fall.
Thank you for the information. I mean, it always can get changed some other way as well, but is there a motion to make the change, or is there no action or other item?
Traffic gonna
I
run
think,
down the way it is right now.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gardner, you were a little difficult to hear.
Right. Is the way they're presenting it now, they want the traffic to go north on Mount Vernon Street?
Yes, it would flow from Joy to Milk.
Okay. So enjoy the milk, it would flow down that way. So that would work out all right on the new bike path. So that's what, well, so it's coming back, it wouldn't, because you've got traffic coming up Mount Vernon now.
That I think that was Mr. McNeil's point as well. I think that's the challenge would be for that next step. Then if you were a one-way, bicycles coming in the opposite direction, how that might factor into the overall having it be one way. Though it seems to me, if I may, it's going to be even more dangerous if we have two-way traffic and bicycles and parking.
Really
Well,
needs to be studied by
Chief-
traffic, yeah.
Chief Pittman?
Yeah, we would have a real issue trying to make a two-way bike path on a one-way street. That's challenging, and it simply wouldn't follow any engineering best ideas unless it was a separate pavement from the roadway, or somehow or other was marked off where vehicles couldn't get onto it. I think given, this information, I think we need to, at this point, just table this until we have a further information about the bike path, the plans, the ideas, because Mike did put a lot of work into that. And I'm guessing there's going to be some movement on that within the next 12 to 24 months coming up.
Thank you. Anything further? So would there be a motion to defer action, or is there simply take no action or to make the change?
I'll make a motion to take no action.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so the motion's been made and seconded. Chief Pittman,
Aye.
Chief Murphy,
Aye.
Mr. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. McNeil.
Aye.
Okay, so for the time being, Mr. Kaufman, no action will be taken, but this isn't forgotten, I would say. And as soon as you either read or hear or see there's a transportation planner that's been hired, perhaps reach out to them and see if we can't spur some action there. Thank you for your time and all the information that you provided.
Can I say something? This is Mrs. Kaufman. I just want some clarification. So how would you said if we see if a traffic engineer is hired, how with that you're saying that we should give that person input? Is that what you're saying? And how would we find out if indeed there was an engineer being hired to look at this?
I guess I would say contact the planning department. They're the ones that are, in charge of hiring the transportation planner. I'm sorry. I wish I had a better answer for you, but
That's no problem. We really appreciate your looking into this.
thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other business from any other members that was not anticipated within 48 hours of the agenda? Hearing none. We have approval of minutes from April 15th, 2021. Are there any questions, concerns, comments, corrections? entertain a motion to approve and adopt those minutes. A motion been made and seconded. Chief Pittman, Chief Murphy, Mr. Rowland, Mr. Gardner, Mr. McNeil.
Aye.
I vote aye. And entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. Chief Pittman,
Aye.
Murphy, Mr. Rowland, Mr. Gardner, Mr. McNeil. Thank you all very much for your time today, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks, Art.
Bye.